In his article, "Are the History Books Telling the Truth About Mashriqi, Jinnah, and Gandhi?" Mr. Nasim Yousaf challenges the accepted beliefs about India's independence struggle. The author draws from extensive research and accounts from Allama Mashriqi's family and the Khaksars, providing unique inside information. The author argues that Jinnah and Gandhi were tasked with spreading communalism and discord between Muslims and Hindus through confrontational politics to advance the divide and rule policy. Jinnah advocated the two-nation theory and demanded Pakistan, while Gandhi opposed it. When Mashriqi made British rule impossible, both leaders accepted the partition of India directed by the last viceroy. British elevated Jinnah and Gandhi for cooperation. Has any government ever promoted those who caused their downfall? The article highlights reasons for Jinnah and Gandhi's promotion, including preventing the unification of Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. Now I will read the piece. People around the world have been made to believe that Jinnah created Pakistan, that Gandhi was the champion of India's freedom, and that the British crushed Allama Mashriqi's Khaksar movement. The reality is that Allama Mashriqi was a uniter working to keep India together, whereas Jinnah and Gandhi's politics played into the hands of the rulers and ultimately resulted in partition. This piece addresses the falsehoods that have been spread with regards to Mashriqi and the other leaders' role in India's history. Most people don't realize that the British rulers would only accept an Indian leader who was willing to implement British policies. Anyone with knowledge of the past and how politics work would know that no Indian was allowed to enter the Viceroy's lodge or have his photos snapped with the rulers, with news flashed across the British-controlled media, without agreeing to serve British interests. Allama Mashriqi was not someone who was willing to follow the British agenda. He founded the Khaksar Tehrik in 1930 to bring freedom to British India. By the late 1930s, Mashriqi had developed a massive following throughout India, and the Tehrik had also formed branches in many other countries. The uniformed membership of the Tehrik in India alone was over 5 million. It had become the most disciplined and well-trained private army in India. In 1939, upon Mashriqi's orders, the Khaksar Tehrik successfully paralyzed the government of the United Provinces, and Sir Harry Graham Haig, governor of UP, had to sign an agreement with the Khaksar Tehrik just to normalize the situation. Dr. Shan Mohammed writes in his book, Khaksar Movement in India, the Khaksar Tehrik became a most powerful organization towards the closing years of the 30s and dominated the field. Further to Mohammed's quote, at its peak, Mashriqi's speeches regularly had 50,000 to 100,000 plus attendees. With such power, Mashriqi moved forward and decided to topple British rule in 1940. This created panic in British circles. On March 19, 1940, a large number of Khaksars were murdered, and Mashriqi, his sons, and followers were arrested. Khaksar activities and publications, including the Al-Islah Journal, were banned and confiscated, and thereafter the government moved swiftly to arrest thousands of Khaksars in different parts of India. Mashriqi was imprisoned without a trial for nearly 2 years, and his movements were then restricted for another year. While in prison, Mashriqi and the Khaksars were tortured. But this suppression and brutality ultimately went against the rulers. Mashriqi's following only grew larger, and the freedom movement escalated to the next level. In a letter on March 21, 1940, Lord Linlithgow, Viceroy of India, wrote to Lord Zetland, Secretary of State for India, stating how great a potential danger the Khaksar movement has become. The correspondence of the Viceroy, provincial governors, and other high officials repeatedly showed that they feared the Khaksars. On June 6, 1941, Lord Linlithgow wrote to Cunningham, governor of NWFP, I felt quite clear after an exhaustive discussion in the council that there was no alternative to the action, which is to ban the Tehrik all across India. The Home Department has now asked all provinces to take it. I have always regarded this movement as potentially a very dangerous one. It is well organized, well disciplined, and it works underground. On July 19, 1941, Linlithgow again stated in a note to Hallett, governor of UP, that he remained unshaken on his perspective that the Tehrik was a thoroughly dangerous organization. Veteran journalist Syed Shabir Hussain also confirmed in his book Al-Mashriqi that Mashriqi was considered by the British as the most dreaded person in the subcontinent. In other words, Mashriqi was not a man who would follow the British policies. By contrast, the British felt that Jinnah was someone who would follow their agenda. Unlike Allama Mashriqi, Jinnah and the All India Muslim League had no popularity across India in 1940. They did not even have a presence in the Punjab province at the time. In fact, the Muslim League had suffered a crushing defeat in the 1937 elections. Since Jinnah and the Muslim League lacked popularity in 1940, they needed support from the British to gain relevance and would be more cooperative with the British agenda. On May 14, 1940, Linlithgow wrote a letter to Zetland stating, "Indeed, I am sure that Jinnah remains the man to deal with on the Muslim side." Linlithgow further wrote, "Jinnah is our man, and we accept him as a representative of all Muslims." Linlithgow again would state that the Muslim League is certainly, I should have said, not disloyal. The Viceroy's letters clearly confirmed that Jinnah was elevated and recognized as the sole leader of the Muslims instead of Allama Mashriqi, because he was someone the British felt would be loyal to them. This also explains why Jinnah enjoyed a free hand in India and was not imprisoned. It is also important to note that Gandhi had already been chosen as the representative of the Hindu side. Similarly, on the Hindu side, Gandhi was treated like a saint because he too supported the British ruler's agenda. In reality, Gandhi's support of non-violence in India and resistance of armed revolt, be it from Mashriqi, Bhagat Singh, or Subhas Chandra Bose, protected British rule. Curiously, Gandhi only seemed to apply the principles of non-violence selectively. For example, he never condemned the rulers when Mashriqi was tortured, his son was killed, and hundreds of Coxars were brutally murdered at the hands of the rulers. Gandhi and Jinnah in fact supported Mashriqi's arrest and suppression of the Coxar Tehreek, and never demanded Mashriqi's release. With the British having their favored leaders in place, all that was left was for each leader to follow the role assigned to him, particularly from 1940 onwards, as part of the British policy of divide and rule. Jinnah would advance the two-nation theory and demand Pakistan, while Gandhi would oppose it. By supporting opposing viewpoints, both leaders furthered communalism, division, and rivalry amongst Muslims and Hindus, which enabled them to remain as frontline leaders and the British to maintain their rule. Even the body language from photos showing Jinnah and Gandhi with the rulers suggests that they had a partnership. The British were savvy and knew how to play the political game to maintain their rule in India. They used the Indian leaders to fire the shots, while setting the agenda behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Allama Mashriqi continued fighting for a free and independent India. Recognizing the political games of the British, Mashriqi continued reaching out to Jinnah and Gandhi to form a united front and join hands with him. Mashriqi was opposed to any transfer of power, as he felt it would forever create an inferiority complex for the nation. He had written in his book, Qual-e-Faisal, in 1935, "You 350 million, if you wanted, you could blow them with your breath across Bombay." Mashriqi gave Jinnah and Gandhi full assurance that they could topple British rule with the backing of his massive Coxar army. But Jinnah and Gandhi did not want to stand with Mashriqi because they knew that if Mashriqi toppled British rule, then he would be the one to take over India's reign. Unlike Mashriqi, Jinnah and Gandhi did not have street power amongst the masses, so their only choice was to pursue a transfer of power. Jinnah and Gandhi had to work with the rulers, or they would have been replaced by others, and there were plenty of others who could have taken over their spots. As time continued to pass, Jinnah's constitutional fight and Gandhi's passive resistance failed to produce any results or bring the country any closer to independence. At the same time, Jinnah and Gandhi's confrontational politics, which were publicized in the British-controlled media, continued to spread hatred and further divide Muslims and Hindus. Mashriqi could see that their politics were delaying freedom and that the British strategy of divide and rule was working. In 1946, Mashriqi decided to move forward with a coup to overturn British rule and to ensure that there would be no further delays in obtaining freedom. Mashriqi distributed a pamphlet in India on December 1, 1946, proclaiming, "Coxar headquarters shall soon issue an order that in the entire India, 4 million Coxars. However, sources quote a range of 4 5 million members, side by side with hundreds of thousands or even millions of supporters, shall march simultaneously. This moment shall dawn upon us very soon, and that is why it is being ordered that a grand preparation for this historical day should commence immediately, so that the British can clearly witness the day of India's freedom. Such a bold proclamation created fear amongst the rulers. Thus, on February 20th, 1947, Prime Minister Attlee announced that power would be transferred no later than June 1948. To Mashriqi, this was yet another political game and delaying tactic by the British. In a press statement, Mashriqi mentioned that Attlee's declaration was a bugle to start a horrific clash between Hindus and Muslims. In other words, the rulers would instigate Muslim-Hindu riots and turmoil by manipulating their favored Muslim and Hindu leaders or through other methods, and then use this as the reason to cancel the transfer of power. To stop any political maneuvering once and for all, on March 1, 1947, Mashriqi ordered 300,000 Khaksars to assemble in Delhi by June 30, 1947. The plan was for the Khaksars to take over Viceroy Lodge and important government offices and installations, including radio and print media. As soon as the Khaksars had completed their mission, Mashriqi planned to announce the end of British rule. These announcements further terrified the rulers because they knew that suppressing such a large number of well-disciplined Khaksars would be impossible. According to the British Home Department's file, as quoted by Dr. Shan Muhammad in his book, government officials apprehended that if the Khaksars were victorious, English men, women, and children throughout India would be massacred. It would be more disastrous than the Royal Indian Navy mutiny in 1946, as it would be a revolution of Muslims throughout India. In light of these developments, the new Viceroy of India, Lord Mountbatten, who had arrived in Delhi on March 22, 1947, with the directive to transfer power by June 1948, clearly foresaw the demise of British rule as a result of the imminent coup. Mountbatten fast-forwarded the partition plan so that it could be announced and accepted before the assembly of the Khaksars. He held hurried meetings with Indian leaders and, on May 18, 1947, rushed to England. Within days, he had the said plan approved by the rulers and returned to India in extreme haste on May 31, 1947. Meanwhile, Mashriqi continued to increase the push for a united overthrow of British rule. On May 14, 1947, in a public meeting in Patna, Mashriqi stated in front of 50,000 attendees, "The last remedy under the present circumstances is that one and all rise against this conspiracy as one man. Let there be a common Hindu-Muslim revolution." Soon after Mountbatten landed in India, he invited Indian leaders to discuss the transfer of power. The Tribune Lahore, dated June 3, 1947, reported, "Urgent call for Gandhiji from Mountbatten on June 2nd, which was Mahatma Gandhi's day of silence. According to Gandhi's website, he won't talk to anybody on that day. He would not break this rule for any reason. Likewise, he also did not go for a walk on that day." And yet Gandhi left for the Viceroy's house in response to an urgent telephonic call to meet Lord Mountbatten. The newspaper further wrote that at 10 a.m., Jinnah, president of the All India Muslim League, was the first one to arrive, followed in quick succession by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. During this rushed meeting, Jinnah, Gandhi, and other leaders accepted the partition plan without even studying its borderlines and repercussions. Prior to the announcement of partition on June 2, 1947, Mashriqi had once again offered full support to keep the country united. Mashriqi sent an SOS message to Gandhi, which is as follows: "The British are quitting India but leaving it divided. In case you launch a struggle against the division of India on communal or Indian states basis, I respectfully offer about 100,000 disciplined volunteers loyally to carry out your orders." But Gandhi would not go against the British to keep India united. The next day, on June 3rd, Mountbatten announced the plan in a press conference and declared August 15, 1947, as the date of the transfer of power. In the aftermath of this announcement, Jinnah and Gandhi used their influence to ensure that the agreement would also be accepted by the All India Muslim League and Indian National Congress parties, respectively. On June 9, 1947, the All India Muslim League accepted the partition plan. Allama Mashriqi once again tried to prevent them from dividing the country, but he was stabbed at a hotel where the Muslim League Council met, as reported by the Canberra Times on June 11, 1947. A few days later, on June 14, 1947, the Indian National Congress also accepted the partition plan. The British completed the Mountbatten Plan in extreme haste and only allotted a mere 73 days to complete the highly complex division of the country, which would determine the destiny of 400 million people. Gandhi ended his day of silence to accept the plan when only a few months prior, that is on March 31, 1947, he had stated, "Partition will be over my dead body." In fact, just days prior to Mountbatten's return to India on May 25, 1947, Gandhi had vehemently spoken in favor of a united India at prayer meetings. Similarly, Jinnah shockingly accepted a truncated, mutilated, and moth-eaten Pakistan, reported by the Tribune June 4, 1947, when on May 27, 1947, he had said, "I am therefore deadly against the partition of Bengal and the Punjab, and we shall fight every inch against it." Mashriqi was stabbed on the same day that the Muslim League accepted the partition plan, and the plan was accepted by all sides only a few weeks prior to the planned assembly of 300,000 Coxars in Delhi. So why was the transfer of power completed in such haste? While historians have provided some flimsy and illogical reasons, the reality is that there was no compelling reason for this rush, other than Mashriqi's planned coup. Keep in mind that India was a very lucrative and strategically important country for the British Empire, and they would not have abandoned their rule in such a hurry without a very serious threat. It is clear that the British transfer of power was not a voluntary one. It was the direct result of the actions and threat of the Coxar Tehrik. The British were in a panic and knew they had no choice but to transfer power, or else their power would be ended by Mashriqi's coup. And Jinnah and Gandhi knew that in order to maintain their political relevance, they had to accept partition. Otherwise, Mashriqi would have achieved a united independence for India, leaving no role for them. Following partition, Jinnah and Gandhi were rewarded for their loyalty to the British. Jinnah was declared the founder of Pakistan and appointed governor-general, and Gandhi was accepted as the champion of India's freedom. To this day, the British establishment continues to honor them with statues, artifacts in museums, conferences, and articles. As recently as April 22, 2022, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson laid a wreath at a Gandhi memorial. If Jinnah and Gandhi had truly ended British rule, then why would the British establishment offer their respects? Is there any other example where a government promotes the people who brought down their rule? Meanwhile, Allama Mashriqi's role continues to be suppressed because he opposed the British throughout and forced them to leave India. Mashriqi's contributions and works have been confiscated, destroyed, or concealed, and he is not honored with statues or artifacts. Not a single British writer has published a book on Mashriqi, giving him credit for ending British rule, and even the University of Cambridge, where Mashriqi broke all previous academic records, has not placed a plaque or created a chair to discuss his role in the freedom movement. The establishments in Britain, Pakistan, and India promote Jinnah and Gandhi while suppressing Mashriqi because it maintains the narrative that Muslims and Hindus wanted partition and that it was indispensable. And politicians in Pakistan and India continue to win elections on the back of communal politics. So keeping communal politics alive benefits the three establishments, while unification would be against their policies and interests. Jinnah and Gandhi's politics and support of partition, when Mashriqi was on the verge of toppling British rule, ultimately destroyed the pride of nation. The transfer of power created an inferiority complex among the people, and partition resulted in devastating consequences for the region. At least 1 to 2 million innocent Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, and others were slaughtered. Millions were uprooted and lost their homes. Partition separated blood relatives, and tens of thousands of females were raped and abducted. Devastation at this scale has rarely been seen in human history. With partition, 2 enemy nations came into being and the Kashmir issue began, which resulted in bloodshed that still continues today. Because of the enmity that exists between Pakistan and India, huge sums of money have been spent on building arms, including a nuclear arsenal, and poverty in the region continues to be widespread. By contrast, Allama Mashriqi's vision of a united India and peace and unity among Muslim, Hindus, and all other races would have been much better for the nation and the world. I call upon human rights organizations and activists to condemn partition and the two-nation theory. In order for a lasting peace to be achieved, the truth needs to finally be revealed. The history of Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh suppresses Allama Mashriqi's role in ending British rule. This documentary portrays his perspective without demeaning anyone. Having just watched a short documentary, remember that it's just the tip of the iceberg. Discover the untold history of the Indian subcontinent in The Road to Freedom, Allama Mashriqi's historic journey from Amritsar to Lahore. This research-based endeavor, spanning years of work, resulted in a 2.5-hour documentary completed on August 1, 2023 in the USA. It challenges the prevailing narrative, revealing hidden aspects about Allama Mashriqi's role, behind-the-scenes politics, figures like Jinnah, Gandhi, and British rulers. With rare archival footage, you will learn why India was partitioned and gain access to new insights from Mashriqi's family and the Coxars. Join us in seeking the truth, healing India's wounds, and preventing history's horrors from fading. The Road to Freedom. Allama Mashriqi's historic journey from Amritsar to Lahore is a documentary that presents the perspective of Allama Mashriqi, the founder of the Coxar movement, on the freedom movement and the partition of India, among other aspects. Allah